Megan. Hi, Daniel.
Good evening.
Hey.
How are you both doing this evening?
I'm doing very well. I've had one whiskey and now I'm on tea, so everything is going good.
That's amazing. And Megan, how are you? Fine
I'm
evening.
staying hydrated, Steph.
All right. Well, we're here to welcome. Now, is it Dauphin? Am I saying that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Daniel Dauphin. I'm going to quick read a little bit of your bio, and then we're going to just get into it. So, Daniel grew up in Louisiana and not in a horsey family. Independent and hardworking, he bought his own first horse at the age of 15 without his parents knowing about it. He spent a total of 6 years apprenticing under cutting horse trainers. He's been a part of the journey for horses, winning major titles and cumulatively well over $1 million. This year will be his 31st as a horse professional, though he's been concentrating on clinics more than training in the last 14 or so years. His common sense and critical thinking presentation style is infused with humor and science. Best known for his teaching on bits, which we're going to get into tonight. Daniel created the bit video, the bit course, which strive to reveal what happens on the other end of the rein and show the public that a happy mouth involves a lot more than just a well-fit bit. He also has a long-form podcast, Adult Onset Horsemanship. I love that, where lively, interesting, and sometimes challenging conversations take place to explore all he can about this world of the horse. So, welcome and thank you. And I believe we need to mention you're going to be at the Midwest Horse Fair in what, 3 weeks? I think we're looking about 3 weeks out now.
Yes, ma'am. We're looking forward to it. My wife will be accompanying me, and we're planning on lots of beer and cheese, and probably talking and helping some people while we're there too. Just as an anecdotal side part of it.
You hit on the major things, beer and cheese. Right, Megan? Yeah, that's exciting. So you're going to be talking to the participants at the horse fair about bits.
Yes, ma'am.
All things about bits. What got you into that side of horses, the bits?
It was really a little bit of an accident when I kind of got into the clinician thing in 2011 or 12. I thought I needed some bona fides. I didn't really have any kind of a reputation in that area. And I do have a background in mechanical engineering, and bits are something I feel like I have insight on most people don't have. And so I thought I'd do some videos on that for YouTube. So if anybody was looking me up, they could get a feel for my presentation style and whether or not I knew what I was talking about. And those videos did quite well. And so I said, well, we'll just go with it. And so we kept expanding the niche, and now here I am a dozen years later in a place I never intended to be. But we're happy to have a spot. And it is an area where there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I feel like that needs to be corrected so that people are making decisions based on truth and reality rather than wives' tales and myths and things that salesmen tell us.
Well, before we get into it, Megan, I feel like we should let people know, and we'll also let them know at the end of the live stream, but the times that you're going to be having talks at the horse fair. So horse fair is
Do you
what?
Have it?
Yep, I do. 17th, okay. 18th, and 19th. Go ahead, Megan.
So anyone who wants to come to your clinics, it'll be Friday at 4 p.m. in the Neutrina Pro Force room. And the topic is what your horse wishes you knew about bits. I love that. On Saturday, same topic, but part 2. And that'll be at noon in it's the same room, the Neutrina Pro Force room. And then on Sunday, bits and bitting without the bite clinic. I don't want any bite. And that's at 10 a.m. Triple Crown Nutrition Arena.
Yep. I believe that'll be a live demo with a horse and a rider. So kind of we give you the academic side, and then we put it into practice. And I don't know what horse and rider shows up, but we'll try to make that horse happier and more comfortable and lighter and softer, and the rider happier too.
And do you work with both or all disciplines, English, Western, or mainly focus on Western bits?
Everyone but barrel racers. You cannot help those people. But no, yeah, we work with everybody. English, Western. At the end of the day, it's a mechanical device that functions in a specific way, and it's the same anatomy on every horse, regardless of what hat or saddle the rider happens to have. So there's a lot less difference in there than we tend to think that there is. That's part of the misperception of what's actually going on. Mechanics are the same, anatomy is the same, it's all the same.
I remember, okay, I'm going to date myself here. I'm just going to say back when I was younger. I'll just leave it like that. Like the only thing we thought about with bits is it wide enough or too wide for the horse? And then, I mean, as a little kid, having some control over the horse was like, how much control could I get out of this bit? Other than that, oblivious. Like it was like when I was a little kid, I needed a Kimberwick because I didn't need to get myself killed. Um, I had a horse that did really well on a Mullen Mouth Pelham, but that was like I knew Snaffle, I knew the double bridle, so the saddlebreds in the barn, although I wasn't in that world. I had a Kimberwick, so I didn't get myself killed as a little kid. And then eventually my horses went into what was the bit of choice back in the day, the egg butt snaffle. And other than that, I knew nothing. Nobody else in the barn knew much of anything, although I'm sure the saddlebred people knew more. I just probably wasn't in tune with what they did. But I feel like it's amazing that we're finally having these conversations about bits and horses and, making sure their horse is comfortable. And because I just feel like it was like, well, as long as it's wide enough and not too wide, you're fine. And it's not hanging too low in the mouth. I feel like that was the only conversations we ever
had. Yes, ma'am. And I would say like the most common piece of feedback that we get from people that go through the course is I had no idea how much I didn't know about bits. And that's really kind of the two groups of people out there are the ones that are, it's such a daunting task. They don't want to face it. Like, let's not even start down this road. Or it's people that figure they already know enough and there's really nothing left to learn. And I would say both are equally wrong. We really do try to make it easy and fun. So I kind of approach the information. I like to kind of bill myself as a guy with serious information who doesn't take himself too seriously. So just like a horse, you got to be in the parasympathetic nervous system and kind of having fun, or you can't learn anything. And I get bored really easy. So there's going to be some jokes and things coming at you every so often to make sure we're all awake and having a good time. And there really is there's an awful lot to this topic, and not everybody needs to understand every aspect of it, but I do think the totality of truth needs to be represented so that it can be found for those that are looking for it, because there's really an astounding amount of bad information out there about bits and how they work. It's incredible how wrong the mainstream is on this statement. It's so that's what I do.
Can you share with us one misconception? We don't want to, I'm sure it's all out there, but what's one topic or one misconception that we should all know?
Well, I don't mean to be picking on, but you just mentioned about bits too low in the mouth. Actually, most bits are too high in the mouth. The 2 wrinkle rule is one of the worst, most harmful myths that is pervasive throughout the deal. One of the absolute most base things we're trying to get a horse to do is form the mouth seal, where they actually pick up the bit and suck on it. And because horses are obligate nose breathers, it's really important that their mouth is closed and quiet while we're riding them. Any of the research that you may get into that's presented by some of like the World Bitless Association and that kind of stuff, all of that research that represents the negative effects bits can have, those things only happen when we offend the tongue and we cause things to happen that shouldn't ever happen. So the actual thing we do with most of the horses that have a problem is lower the bit quite a lot. In fact, I'll put it where it's hanging 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch below the corner of the mouth. and I want it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I want it annoying the horse, but because it annoys the horse, they're going to figure out how to stop this annoyance. And the solution is suck on the bit, pick it up and hold it in your mouth. And now we've formed the mouth seal, and all of those sensitive soft tissues where the actual soft signals from the bit go to first, the lips and the corners of the mouth and the tongue, those tissues are now relaxed. If we have the textbook 2 wrinkle situation, first of all, that takes any bit that we narrowed that we measured, and it's now narrower because we pulled those 2 rings in together. And we have the head stall applying X number of pounds of pressure to the corner of the mouth that we are asking the horse to simply ignore. This signal from the bit does not mean give me vertical flexion, turn left, stop, or anything. And if you really look into it, that's the textbook definition of desensitizing. I do not want to desensitize my horse to the bit. And that is exactly what 2 wrinkles in the corners of the mouth does. So that is one of those dogmatic things that we have just dead wrong. And I love the live demos because that horse in about 5 or 10 minutes is going to show everybody in the crowd that he much prefers my way than being made to smile with. I'll even do demos. I put a rubber band around my head where it's up in the corner of the mouth, makes me look like a jackwagon or something like that. And obviously, how comfortable is that? Why isn't everybody doing this on Saturdays just to relax, put a big rubber band around their head that pulls their cheeks up and makes them smile? Like obviously that doesn't seem like it would be comfortable or relaxing, and yet we are convinced that that's the right thing to do to our horse, and then we don't know why he's hard to catch or hard to bridle or any of those things. It's a complete mystery. I'm a little sarcastic too. I don't know if I warned y'all about that in the bio or not.
That's all right. Megan knows I'm pretty much of a sarcastic soul myself. So, like, how I want to go talking about like all the different bits I've seen because, good Lord, um, like, do you start off? You just suggest people just bring whatever you've been using, or do you tell people bring a handful, or how does this work for the bidding clinic with you?
Well, the clinics, I don't, that kind of depends. Most of the time at the clinics, I have no idea who or what shows up until they're at the gate. And then we walk in and there's a live mic in the crowd. So if I'm doing like a personal consultation, then I'm asking the people questions beforehand. Uh, Training stage of the horse is actually a really big part of this. So like whether we should use a snaffle or a shank bit or something like that, that's really more dependent on where this horse is in its stage of training or what its problems may be. And we may need to back up to a lower stage of training and kind of make sure we really understand the ABCs before we try to read paragraphs. That's a very common problem that we run across. So backing up to snaffles is relatively a regular occurrence with me, but I always want to see what the person's doing right now. And I try to, don't try to impress me. Don't forget I'm here. Just do whatever you would normally do for 10 minutes and let me see what that looks like. And that gives me the truest picture of what we may need to do. A lot of what I do is actually working with the rider. So I know I'm doing bit stuff, but the truth is Picasso would make masterpieces with any paintbrush you gave him. It's not so much about the tool. So about 75% of the time, we actually don't change the bit. We change what the rider's doing with their hands, give them some simple skills, some awarenesses. I want you to look for this. Did you see that? And you see the horse, and here's all the calming signals cascading down, and you can see that this is working. And now the horse is kind of an active partner in what we're doing, and the horse tells us when we're successful and when we're not. And so working with the rider on reading the horse and some of those things is really the most of what we do. About a quarter of the time, I mean, I do measure mouths, and bit fitting is a part of what I do, but what I do is much more comprehensive than bit fitting. So that's why we call it a consultation. Because again, you could have the perfect bit for this individual horse's anatomy, and if the rider isn't skilled or they have bad timing or something, they're still going to make a mess of it. So that's only a certain, small percentage of the puzzle here. We really have to address a lot more than that.
And for someone who's watching that may not know, what are things that you're looking for that tell you the horse is unhappy? I mean, obviously their head is moving around, but are there other things that you look for?
Yeah. So I'm watching parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system signs. So it's really common that horses are going into the fidget and freeze responses. Fidget is relatively easy to see, but freeze is a lot harder to see. It kind of takes decades of working with horses. So again, we're doing a lot of reading of the micro expressions and the body language of the horse, triangular eyes, how tight the mouth is. I'm looking at other things like tension in the neck and the brachioradialis, and you know the all of the things that go. Tongue tension is probably the single biggest thing that we see offense of the tongue. People really don't take the tongue into account enough. In fact, if you listen to any bit salesman talking with you, they're going to always talk about bar pressure. Well, bar pressure only happens after complete compression of all of the soft tissues. And neurologically speaking, the tongue is, I don't know, 2,000 times more sensitive than the bars. The whole thing is about the tongue. If you mess things up with the tongue and you offend it, the ship has sailed. Bar pressure is something we should relatively seldom ever get to, which is another part of what we're working on with the rider. I want them to pick up the reins extremely slowly and actually feel when they make contact with the lip. And beyond that, we make contact with the tongue. And now we compress the tongue. And now we've made bar contact. And when you go about that slowly and methodically, you realize bar contact is like 20 times heavier than where they could very easily feel me in the corner of the lip. And people realize you essentially have been screaming at your horse for all these years riding him, and he's just in self-defense mode. And when you finally get quiet and soft enough that he can have the conversation with you, I mean, the magic happens. They just relax so much, and they become so much more responsive. And now the person feels that, and they can relax, and they become more confident. And it's just a self-feeding fire at that point. You never want to feel the other stuff again once you've felt it that way.
So do you find a lot of difference in, I don't know, like, are you mainly clinicking and doing consultations with people who ride Western, or do you see all the different types of riding?
It's a pretty broad cross section, honestly. I would say it's a maybe 50-50 between English and Western riders. I know I have more of a Western background with cutting horses, but I work with a lot of English dressage riders and so forth. Most of the time when they've gotten to the point where they're really having some serious problems, and now they're kind of okay, I'll talk to the cowboy, maybe he does know something, you know. But no, it's kind of a cross section. Like the stuff that we present in our courses and all, it's not at all discipline specific. So we what I mean by that is we cover the entire spectrum. So no matter what part of it you're in, like we're going to discuss double bridles, we're going to discuss riding in the two rein, we're going to discuss what the difference that might mean if you're in the Vaquero Californio side versus the saddlebred side, and all about snaffles. And so where I said earlier, like the mechanics are the same and the tools are the same and the anatomy and physiology is the same, the goals aren't necessarily. And so that's really where it is. You may want to aim at this other thing, and there are tools that are more appropriate to work on this thing than that thing. But the mechanics and the physiology are the same regardless. The calming signals, the body language of the horse, the tension, the muscle, the skeleton system, it's all exactly the same regardless. So we just kind of take that. Sorry, a dog's going nuts in my office here. We just take all of those facts and now we aim them at whatever our particular goal is. And it's actually very logical, where people tend to think, you know, they try bits randomly and this is like this huge mystery. It's not a mystery at all. There's a very logical progression of exactly what tools make sense to go toward your goal and what the logical hierarchy of skills that are needed to get there. A lot of people kind of jump ahead on the training scale. They don't have the foundation as solid as they need. Like lateral flexion is kind of the most base thing. There's hardly a rider that I work with that we don't go back and fix some things in lateral flexion that have either gotten messed up or passed beyond, and release some tension there, and then the vertical flexion stuff just magically melts away. The problem wasn't actually there, it was at the more foundational level of lateral flexion. So it's really it's simpler than you think. It might sound complicated, but if you watch me work, it's boring. I'm afraid it's all very simple stuff.
Is there a lot of difference And I'm going to keep it real simple. Western horses go on a very loose rein. A lot of different styles go on the loose rein, and then there's certain disciplines that go where they're in constant contact or close to almost always constant contact with the bit and the mouth. Does that change the way you approach things?
It does, and what I would say is, whoop, did I lose Joe? What I would say is that what you're describing there are actually training stages. So the horse that comes to work on a loose rein didn't start there. They went through contact and then were weaned off of it into self carriage. Hopefully, we're assuming all things are good there and it was done appropriately. Some of the English disciplines, even though they're the ones that use the term, their actual goal doesn't involve true self carriage anymore. A lot of those horses, if you left the contact alone and you fed them some slack, they get lost all of a sudden. And that's just a training stage. If you kind of got them confident there, you could wean them off of the contact, hold the position, and they wouldn't have held carriage. They would have true self carriage. So a lot of what we're talking about here isn't really the classical roots, it's the modern fads. If you watched dressage, for instance, like you can go right now on YouTube and watch clips of Nuno Oliveira in the 60s and 70s. He's doing the piaffe with slack in the rein and the horse's nose in front of the vertical. We have taken these concepts and perverted them into these other things, and now we see horses way behind the vertical and this really heavy contact. But that is a perversion of what it was supposed to be. We have lost the road when we see that kind of stuff. That's not what it should have been. And I don't, I try to talk about the reality of it. So if you want to learn to ride with 20 pounds of pressure in your horse's mouth and keep him happy, I'm not your guy, because that's not possible, realistic, or something that you should actually be aiming at.
I love that. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. I love that you brought up the tongue. So I work with a lot of warm bloods, and I've been seeing lately fatter tongues and a smaller space for the bits. Are you seeing that across the board with all
Yes.
horses? Why?
I think it has to do with breeding and, again, the things that we're looking at. But if we even back up 100 or 150 years, we have skulls and things from that age, and then we certainly have bits. The actual trend is that the bars, the jaw of the horse, is getting narrower, and yet the mouth is getting wider. So we are clearly making a fleshier horse at this point than what we would have had 100 or 150 years ago. Why, I can only speculate. I mean, I assume it comes down to breeding and the things that we're selecting for and so forth. But to me, that's not, flesh is the easier thing to accommodate than bone. And so that actually makes our job easier rather than harder. And so with the tongue, the tongue is very, very malleable. And again, it's a muscle. They're going to use it a lot. So you really kind of have to be in the extremes. I actually have, yeah. So like these kinds of bits right here, this is a really common sort of a bit. This would be an example of something I would say, just don't ever put this in a horse's mouth. The best use for this is to weigh a trot line down so that the bait gets right down at the bottom where the catfish are. This is just too large of a mass in the space of a horse's mouth, even a big warm blood, and they're not going to be able to form the mouth seal around this. And so as long as we're staying in reasonable diameters, we're not going off the charts with some of these ridiculous. I mean, this should be a comically large bit. This should not be mainstream or easy to find. This should be an absurdity that everyone recognizes. There is no way even a 17-hand horse can comfortably hold something that big in their mouth. And so that's a lot of what we do. We're just trying something that never should work in the first place. And so that's the solution. Stop. Don't use that. That is an inappropriate. I would say, in my view, probably 90% of the bits out there on the market are something you should never put in a horse's mouth. People are attracted to shiny objects, and the bit salesmen know that. They're making fishing lures, and the only purpose behind that bit was to catch your eye and make you buy it. They did not design it to go in a horse's mouth and function well. So usually the simpler you're staying, if it takes you a long time to figure out how this thing works, that should be a huge red flag, and you should just walk away from that. They don't all have a good purpose behind them. I have one of the things we do in the bit courses, I have some experts come in some of our master classes, and I've had two of the best known bit makers in North America candidly say that they do indeed design bits to be fishing lures because it's a shiny, pretty object and you will spend the money on it. But they were not thinking about how this interacts with the horse's anatomy or anything like that. They were thinking about what you're going to actually spend your money on. And this simple thing that's been working for 300 years over here, nobody's interested in it anymore. And that's just the reality of the situation. But if your horse could pick which bit they wanted you to ride with, it would be that simple thing over there that's been working for 300 years, not this shiny, cool looking, whatchamacallit doodad over here with bells and whistles and moving beads and rhinestones and a nose thing and this, that, that's foolishness we need to learn to stay away from. It's really what it is.
So can we talk about
Maybe I shouldn't have had the whiskey before we did this.
No, you're good. You're fine. How about, can we talk about like materials for bits? Because obviously you've got different types of metals, but you've also got like plastic and rubber and different versions of that. And I know I had one mare, I probably tried 30 bits on her, and she just liked a very soft plastic mullen mouth. And then I had another mare that wouldn't go in anything but a rubber bit.
So I'll just say the overarching theme here is that if the horse is happy, I'm happy. What I'm generally guiding people to is the thing that works 98% of the time. If I can't find something that works, I'll start eventually trying the 2% of the time stuff. But the most common, widely accepted material that we can make bits out of is sweet iron with copper inlay. Generally speaking, and I just do these things. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't sell bits at all or anything like that. I just try a lot of different bits on a lot of different horses, and I see what is commonly accepted and what is the thing that 1 in 30 horses likes, And so the sweet iron with copper inlay is far and away the most accepted type of material to make a bit out of, and there are some good reasons for it. One, again, I'll put up this ridiculous thing, and if y'all can tell, I don't think the light's going to show it. This bit, I actually have changed the sides on it. So I use the word shiny, and I use it comically but purposefully. People tend to want to see a shiny object. You don't want to go pay good money for something that looks rusty. The problem is when we're trying to get the horse to form that mouth seal I was talking about earlier, that shiny object covered with saliva is now a greased pig in the horse's mouth. And that rusty bit has texture on it that the horse can very easily hold, and they don't get fatigued. So the shiny bits that are highly polished, the stainless steel, they even make them out of metal specifically so that it stays shiny a long, long time. That becomes a greased pig in the horse's mouth, and they get fatigued rather quickly trying to hold it. And that's where a lot of the root of our problems comes in. So when we make a bit that'll have some texture on it, it's easy for them to hold. They're comfortable. They're not wrestling it around. They don't get fatigued. That is the thing that the horse would actually choose the majority of the time. The copper inlay adds another layer to that. We have kind of this myth about copper and what it does to horses. And I've heard all kinds of things from it'll stop mares from cycling, which is total BS, and just all kinds of other things, and that it makes the horse salivate. So the science of this is actually very clear. What is actually going on is we have two different metals together. So that sweet iron with copper inlay, you will not get this effect with a pure copper mouth. When we have two distinctly different metals in contact in the horse's saliva, that actually forms a very weak battery through the process of galvanization. So we actually get an electric current in the horse's mouth, very similar to those square 9-volt batteries. If you touch it to your tongue, you get that metallic taste, and you'll get a squirt of saliva right away. So the copper with the other metal, it could actually be copper with stainless steel, or even gold or silver would make an even more powerful battery. And so this helps to keep the horse's salivation stimulated, which actually, y'all haven't asked the question, but the really big holy grail here, the super important thing we want the horse to continue to do, is swallowing. And I'll tell you, it took me about 3 years of wading through a whole lot of different research to be able to just say that simple sentence, that the main thing we're looking for is for the horse to continue to swallow. But if we have them continuing to salivate and we have good mouth habits going on, then that means they're going to continue to swallow. Most of the problems that we see, the vices, are situations where the horse isn't swallowing. And that's actually a very, very big deal. That just radiates tension literally all the way back to the hocks. It goes completely through the horse's body. Swallowing is a huge, huge thing we should all be paying attention to.
I wanted to bring up your online courses that you've mentioned a couple of times for anybody who's watching. That you do have an online course on your website, and maybe just a short synopsis of what they're going to find and who should really watch it. Sounds like everyone.
Sure. So we have 2 online courses. Actually, there is what's called the self-guided course, and it is evergreen. So you can get that at any time. It gives you about 21 weeks of access, and that has about 15 hours worth of content to go through, and about a 70-page study guide. And then there's also a community associated with it. So you can go in there and ask questions, and you can read other people's questions, and you can post a picture of, like, we do have some homework things in there for you to try. So I encourage people to video that and then post it in there. And then I'll give you some feedback on it, what you might try, or your timing was off a little here, or whatever. And then we have got a much more comprehensive aspect to it, and that is the masterclass course. The masterclass course is a year worth of access. We run those quarterly, so they start all together. We're actually going to be starting one at the latter part of April here. And that is really aimed at the professional. So there's a certification that comes with that. It's not a gimme sort of a thing. We're going to have 10 or 11 weeks of live masterclass meetings as we go through the content in an organized way. It should be looked at really like a college course. And then once you have gone through it, you can test for certification. I am pretty proud. We recently certified our first person. We've had quite a few go through, but like I say, it's a lot. That's the feedback I tend to get, is there's way more to this than I thought there was going to be. And so that sets you up to do consultations on your own, and really help people and their horses with some of these problems, and help me to dispel some of the popular myths out there that are not doing us any favors.
Can we talk about when it's a good time in a young horse's life to introduce them to a bit and bridle? Maybe they're not being ridden. Do you wait until you're getting ready to get on them? Do you get on them first with a, hackamore bozal, side pole? Do you let the 2-year-olds? I mean, I never rode 2-year-olds, but do you put a 2-year-old in just a simple head stall with a bit and let them for 15 minutes just learn how to suck on the bit? Or what is your suggested way to introduce a young horse?
That's a wonderful question, and I'm glad. I have some really strong feelings on how to go about this. For one, I don't ever want to put a bit on a horse in a situation where I'm not in control. So I don't want to put a bit on a horse and just go tie him up and let him play with that for 3 hours. That's one of the worst things you can do, to have them develop mouth vices and things you're not there to help control. And it can become kind of a pacifier or something they ignore, or it can really lead to some bad stuff. So the way that I go about it is, when I'm ready to start the horse and start riding them, I start doing my groundwork. And when the horse is gentle enough, I do still get a decent number of colts in that aren't even halter broke, but they want them started to ride. And so I may spend the first few days just getting that horse halter broke. Once they're gentle enough, I have a simple snaffle. It's an O-ring. It's just on a string. So there's no reins, no real head stall. And I will put that on the horse, again, adjusted fairly loosely. And then I start doing groundwork with the horse. So his mind is occupied. Okay, he has other things to think about. He doesn't obsess over it. And you would be shocked. I would say 98% of them in 5 minutes, they're holding that bit like a champ, and they hold it like that the rest of their life. We don't have all of the mouthing things and all of that stuff going on, which again, because a horse is an obligate nose breather, that's causing airway and breathing problems. And these are not things we want to see a horse do. It is a bigger problem than people realize. So making sure that they're always comfortable, they form the mouth seal, and now their mind is occupied, and we're going to go do something. That's how I approach it. You could go a few days like that without doing anything else. If you want to drive the horse or whatever, that's fine. The big thing that I'm really harping on there is that we start everything with lateral flexion, and we stay there for a while. So as far as rider skills, one of the most important things I could ever get across to you is that people do way too much pulling on 2 reins at the same time and not nearly enough 1 rein at a time, and really backing things down to 1 rein at a time and soft lateral flexion. That's what keeps the jaw, the TMJ, and all of those things nice and loose, and the horse comfortable and their mind focused where they can release tension and everything. If you're going to drive them around and pull hard on 2 reins at the same time on a horse that doesn't know anything, there's nothing I can do to help you. You're going to make a mess of that, period, full stop. No 2 ways about it. It's just the wrong approach. So that's what I would say. Don't tie them up where they can just play with this thing and it becomes meaningless. And don't pull on 2 reins at the same time for quite a while. Pull on 1 rein and get them soft left and right and left and right. Really contact. You asked about contact. This was a revolutionary thought to me. If I say contact, everybody in their mind would picture somebody pulling on 2 reins at the same time, right? Contact actually begins with 1 rein. If we have a problem with contact and we need to back up, the more foundational step is, will you accept me picking up lightly on the left rein and yield to that and allow me to hold you without you bracing? And for most horses with a problem, the answer to that question is no. So that's where you need to back up to in order to get them relaxed, releasing tension, and where they can tolerate your hands again.
What do you think about like the fixed mouth bits? And I mean anything from a fixed mouth curb to like a Mullen mouth pelham, something that doesn't have, I don't know if you could show that snaffle real quick, but that broken link in the middle that would be, go a little higher. There you go. Something that doesn't have that ability to break in the middle. What do you think about the bits that they can't bend in the middle, that are straight across, be it a curb, a Mullen mouth?
So let me be clear about this bit. The offensive part of this bit is how big this mouthpiece is. It's not the single joint. Okay, so there kind of is an upper limit there. For most horses, that 7/16 mouthpiece diameter is about as big as you're going to go without some problems. And if you get into the drafts and some really big mouth horses, you can go up to the 1/2 inch size, but like this is probably 3/4 of an inch. I don't think there's a horse on the planet that is going to legitimately be comfortable with something that big around in their mouth. So that's really where the problem with this bit lies. So a Mullen mouth in and of itself, I don't have any issue with, but when the diameter of that Mullen mouth gets above 1/2 of an inch, your odds of being successful with that with a horse that's not 27 hands tall is very slim. I'll just put it that way.
Do you run into issues with, the fact that it is straight across? There's no break per se for their tongue, although, a curb is going to be a little different, but do you have anything to comment on that?
So that the mechanical breakdown there kind of does depend on the horse. So the straight across miles are very common in the driving world to this day. The old timer terminology for that was a mule bit. So the mechanical effect we tend to see in the bits that don't articulate is they tend to stiffen a horse. So there are horses that are too bendy and we need to kind of stiffen out. And mules are the classic example because they're very infamous for rubbernecking, where you'll pull them around all the way to the left and they're still running away to the right and you can't get them stopped. So something that mechanically kind of stiffens them actually works in your favor. And the same for like a horse that's driving. You don't want a horse that's between the lines and has the forks of the wagon on either side. He can't turn 90 degrees on you, or you have a huge wreck on your hands. So you need that horse to kind of stay a little straighter. So again, it kind of depends on your goal and this individual and what their strengths or weaknesses or problems may be. There are situations where that is the perfect choice, and there are situations where that would be a very poor choice. It would just kind of depend on exactly what you're looking at with this particular situation.
You almost beat me again, Steph. So I kind of want to put you on the spot because I've been put on the spot a few times, and that is, what about bitless riding? I've had a few people that don't like that I ride in bits, and they think it's abusive, offensive, whatever. Because you're the bit man, what are your thoughts on that?
So I don't have a dog in the fight here. It is not my position that everybody has to, needs to, or should ride with a bit. There are definitely some horses that I have worked with where the advice I give the person is, I wouldn't put a bit in this horse's mouth anymore. There's too much damage that's been done, too much baggage. Just save both of you a whole lot of time and effort and just go bitless. What I will say is that most of the time when I come across those arguments, what we're actually looking at is a person and a horse whose problem wasn't the bit, it was the skill level of the rider. And all they basically did was went to less sensitive and harder to offend pressure points. And that does not, it might solve the problem with this horse, but I would rather make you more skillful and more aware so that you can now be better with any horse. And so it doesn't exempt you from education, doesn't exempt you from reading the horse well, it doesn't exempt you from having good timing. All of those skills still need to be brought into the situation. And as long as you're doing it with that in mind, then no harm, no foul. But I'll say, it's rare that I find a horse that I can't ride well with a bit. And there are some advantages that don't get talked about with bits, but because the tissues that I'm working on are so sensitive and sensory, if I am a skillful and aware horse person, the subtlety of my communication and my ability to literally feel that animal's emotions and where they are and how they are right now, that is increased for me. And so that's how I would look at it. There isn't really a scenario where I think you could say bits are cruel. They're inanimate objects. I always like to compare them to bricks. You could take a brick and you could build a hospital or a school or a home, or you could use the brick to bash someone's brains in. Neither outcome is the fault of the brick. The tool is a bit, and it's up to the animator to decide whether the inanimate object is used well or used poorly. So that's how I look at it.
Do you talk to people about, let's say that they're riding in a curb with curb chain? Do you get into discussions with them about proper tightness, looseness of the curb, since that really does kind of change things for the bit?
We have a whole 20 or 30-minute section in the course that is just on curb chains, okay? Because there is a significant amount of adjustment that can be done with just that. I like to make a lot of these kind of examples. Another one would be D-ring or egg butt or whatever. If you have strong feelings that there's really a difference there, allow me to bridle your horse and put a bag over his mouth, and then you go take him for a 10-minute ride and tell me which kind of bit was in his mouth right now. And if you can't, is there really a difference? Curbs are one of those things where I could take the same bit that you don't like on this horse, and I could play around with adjustment or a different material or something like that, and I could make you think you have a whole different bit in this horse's mouth. There is way more change to be made in the curb itself than people tend to realize. Very good question.
What's the weirdest bit you've ever seen someone use?
I don't know that I would have a name for it necessarily, but I've seen some stuff. There are really some people that take it as a personal challenge to freak me out and come up and send me the weirdest things that they can find. Probably the stuff I really don't like to see are most of the combination things where we're involving a bit in the mouth and something on the nose, and maybe we throw gag action in there just because we need it to be super duper complicated or something. That's the stuff that I really I'm scratching my head going, why? Like why did this need to be made? You know, we could cross a Yorkie with a dragon and a chicken, but why do we really need to do that? Like, is there a point to this whatsoever? If I could ride this horse forward in a halter and ask him to stop and turn left, why do I need this Rube Goldberg contraption that is sufficient lure? That's what that stuff is. You know, so if it's that complex and you can't look at it in 3 seconds, understand how it works, huge red flag, avoid. You know, if you want to buy it to hang on your wall as a conversation piece at the barn, great. Please don't put it on a horse though.
You know, it's funny. I sent Megan probably a year ago. It was an image from, I'll just say it was a jumper rider who won some huge, big international class. And I literally stared at this picture for 5 minutes and could not figure out all the garbage on the horse's head. It was astounding to me. There was straps and reins and tie downs and metal pieces going everywhere. And I just was like, what on earth? And I mean, there was probably like 10 different things on this horse's head. I couldn't figure out what it all was for. And there was wire, and there was metal, and there was rope, and there was leather. And I just was like, how do you even turn the horse? He's got so much stuff all over him, like massive contraptions. And it makes me sad because, you know, decades ago in my horse experience, I spent a lot of time in the hunter jumper world, and some of those horses that were stepping down from the big rings had so much damage to their mouths. And then you see these pictures that, you know, are in magazines and online. And like I said, at 5 minutes, I couldn't figure out what was going where. So it's astounding. I thought you were going to say something like bike chain or something insane like that, because those are the crazy things that you see on the steakhouse walls that are just decor. They're so horrific. It's just like, okay, some idiot made this just to hang on the wall of a steakhouse as a conversation piece with all the other tack on the wall.
Yeah, there in my mind, if what we're doing is we're successfully training a horse, then we should be graduating our way through the bits, not failing our way through them. And if our communication is getting more and more sophisticated and more clear, then we should actually need less and less, not more and more. So if I can get on a horse and in the 5th ride turn him left and stop him, and he's pretty comfortable and relaxed, then I don't know why in 5 years you need 7 bridles on his head to do the same thing. To me, that's pretty indicative of things going the wrong direction, not the right direction. So they do a lot of things in spite of us, you know, that they really do. I kind of talk about a lot of the things that we deal with as a clinician. I'm not just the bit guy. I do regular clinics with just horsemanship stuff too, and kind of the typical newbie rider to me, the first hurdle is to get them to stop seeing this horse as a unicorn and see the actual horse standing in front of him and not this overly romanticized version. But the truth is, 30 years down the road, when you've been doing this a long time and you start to see how much stuff they put up with in spite of us, you hit a second wave of romanticism about how generous and magnificent these creatures are, because they should kill a lot more of us. They really should.
Is there a horse, like looking back, is there a horse that you wish you could go back and do things differently with, or?
Oh, dozens. Yeah.
Dozens?
There's a whole lot of horses. I mean, it's hard to, I've worked with a whole lot of horses, thousands. So it's kind of at this point difficult for me to remember that many individuals. There has to have been something kind of an outlier about one for there to be very many individuals that I can think of. But yeah, there's a bunch of them that I wish I had, had them back knowing what I know now. I wish I had my 25-year-old body back with my brain now too. That would be really nice, because now you kind of have to figure things out because your left knee and your back don't do what they're supposed to anymore. But yeah, there's a bunch of them I would love to go back and apologize to, and ride with better hands and better timing and know what I know now for sure.
Absolutely. So on Megan's note, I got to ask, because you have ridden and trained cutting horses, and that to me just blows my mind, because that's just a whole other amazing world, that these horses are trained to follow these cows, and I mean, you put your hand down and it's all the horse. So can you, I know it's a little off topic of the bidding, but I'm so fascinated. What is that like to sit on a good cutting horse? It's crazy. It looks like, I mean, it looks like you're hanging on for dear life.
Well, that's partly true. When they really get fully trained, like it honestly takes a couple of years before they're automatic. You're doing more with your seat and legs than people might realize watching the ride. But when you get to those really open level horses that they've got this figured out and they're super confident and they're ready to go kick butt, that does become a scenario where you're kind of just hanging on and trying to keep up with them. And that's phenomenal. Like to me, that's the greatest thing we can do with a horse, is train them to the point where it is truly now up to their greatest athletic potential, and you just get out of the way and full send, baby, go get it. It doesn't get any better than that. And that's definitely what a good cutting horse does. To me, I love the challenge of it too, because the rider really is in control. You are still cueing the horse and helping them, but they really have to split their attention in a way I don't know any other horse does, because they really do focus on the cow, but then they're still paying attention to you helping them out. And I love that challenge. It does kind of lend itself. I don't know if you have dealt with very many cutting horses, but they tend to be kind of the antisocial, independent, chip on their shoulder sort of a horse that they're not usually really. You wouldn't want to get a novice and go get them something that's cut and bred for a trail riding horse. Like, that horse is going to eat their lunch. They're not those kinds of horses. This is like the kid you got out of juvenile detention and you're trying to get him on the straight road. That's more like the kind of attitude that they have. So it's always a good challenge and a lot of fun, but boy, when you get them working on the same page with you, and I can genuinely say they love their job. If they don't, they're not going to last very long in that deal. So there is absolutely no greater thing than putting your hand down on a cutting horse and just saying, go get him. It's wonderful. It truly is.
It's sure fun to watch, especially when they're squatting down and they're down and they're squatting, and it's like, I just look at it and go, oh my God, don't fall off. Because they'll jump right out from underneath you, won't they? You're not paying attention.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do kind of have to get used to the way that they move. I mean, once you kind of have the feel of it, just like jumpers, you know, I've watched some people that are jumpers and they're in that little bitty saddle and then the horse bucks and you're like, wow, they can really ride a bucking horse pretty good, but they're used to that whole lunge thing forward and up. Like that's what they do. So they get very accustomed to riding a horse in that manner. So with the cutting horse going sideways really fast and stopping really hard, when you do that a lot, you know, it becomes second nature to you. It's not really challenging to ride. It's not like it's not tiring at all. I would say it's just as hard to trot a horse around in a circle as it is to ride one on cattle once you know you have the feel of it and everything. If you're fighting the horse and you're wrestling, like you're doing it wrong. It should be very smooth and very comfortable.
Do you still take courses in training? What other services do you offer people?
I do periodically. So like this past winter, I've had several horses in for training. Now we're kind of getting into the expo season, and this year for the first time, I actually have quite a few clinics out of the country. I think we'll be gone for about 3 or 4 months out of the country this year, and so it's not possible for me to be here riding horses when you're on a you know different country. So I do occasionally take in horses just kind of when it makes sense and I can be here enough to do that. Um, we do a lot of virtual lessons at this point, so kind of Zoom calls or Pivo deals, and that's been really a surreal sort of a thing. I remember it was a day last month. I gave a lesson to someone in New Zealand, someone in England, someone in Canada, and someone in Texas, all in the same day. And you're just like, that's, or say on the same day, like in Australia and New Zealand, it's the next day for them. So the whole scheduling time zones becomes very challenging. But we do a lot of that these days. I do bidding consultations the same way where I have to describe to you how to put your thumbs in a horse's mouth and tell me what you feel and all of that. But and I've really I was pretty skeptical about that stuff when we started doing it. I wasn't really sure how well we could actually help someone that was, you know, hours away, but it has actually proven to be pretty successful. And I think the good part of it is that we record all of them, and so then you get a video and you can watch everything I saw from my perspective and hear what I'm saying now, along with what, you know, because sometimes people, what they think happened and what they then see happened aren't necessarily the same thing. So being able to watch that ride again, I think is pretty helpful. Kind of makes up the difference of me not being there in person and being able to put my hands on that horse when I might want to or whatever. So I'm not going to say it's the same thing as me being there in person, but it's a definitely a viable tool. So we're pretty happy with that. Yeah. So that's probably the second most common or third, I guess, behind clinics and the bit course stuff is the virtual lessons.
We should talk about again. You're coming to Madison, Wisconsin for Midwest Horse Fair, which is coming up in just a few weeks. Megan, do you have the times for each day again? Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
I sure do. So Friday will be at 4 p.m. in the Neutrina Pro Force room. Saturday will be at noon in the Neutrina Pro Force room. And Sunday will be 10 a.m. at the Triple Crown Nutrition Arena. So everybody, yeah.
Are you having a booth? Are they going to be able to come see you at a booth?
I will not. Probably what I'll do is maybe find one of my buddies. There are a few other clinicians there that I'm friends with, so I'll be walking around and hanging out. And I am very approachable. If somebody sees me there and they've got a bit question, you know, please come stop me and tell me I've got some cheese in my beard and let me clean that up and then ask all the questions that you got. I will say there's one other thing I'll be doing. One of my friends is Marcelo Guzman, who will be there competing in the working equitation competition. And he has asked me to be one of his helper riders during the cattle portion of that. So I have never shown him, and I guess I'm not showing, I'm helping. But anyway, I'll be riding a horse during the cattle part of his working equitation test as well, which I think is like an hour before one of my presentations. So I'm going to tell him he's got to get this on the road. Let's go, because I got to be over there in a little while, you know. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about that.
We met him last year, and he is just the neatest person. I so enjoyed talking to him. So we'll be cheering him on. We also have a video of an interview with him at Midwest Horse Fair last year. So we're going to catch up with him as well. So, woo!
Very cool. Yes, ma'am. He's
Right.
a passionate guy about his Chilean horses. No doubt about that.
Well, have we forgotten anything to ask you? Like, is there anything that you would like to share or that people should know coming to your clinic before they come? We so appreciate this time with you.
No, I would rather the most jacked up horse I can get at the clinic, because then I can fix things. So please, if you're going to participate in the clinic, forget everything I just said. Come with a really shiny bit. 4 wrinkles in the corner of the mouth is what I would prefer. Tightest nose band that you can find, something like that. That's what we're really looking for the clinic. So,
Do I have the correct website up there?
yes, ma'am. That's one
All
of
right.
them. We also have thebitcourse.com, which is, you know, simple and easy to spell. So we have 2 websites.
Hopefully you can get from one to the other and back again, right? But we want to make
Yes,
sure
ma'am.
people know where to find you. So that's your horsemanship one. Let me go ahead and put the other one up on the website or on the screen so people see them both.
Yeah. Perfect.
So they can find you there, but they should come to Madison, come to Horse Fair, come eat some fried cheese, go out for dinner and have a little spotted cow, the New Glarus Brewery, which is one of our famous local. Everybody wants the New Glarus spotted cow. Local
That
brew.
sounds. What do they serve at the Spotted Cow?
Well, it's actually one of the brands of beers that, or one of the strains.
Oh.
I don't know what you want to call it. It's the type of beer they make. They got a whole bunch of them. Spotted Cow seems to be everybody's favorite.
Okay.
It's
That sounds good.
If you can sneak down before you leave town to New Glarus and take a tour, it's, I don't know, 45 minutes out of Madison. Take a tour of the brewery. It's beautiful, and everybody loves it. And you can do a little tasting.
That sounds wonderful. Yes, ma'am. And
Yeah.
I tell you what, I'm going to leave y'all with one tip. Okay. So on the shiny bits, about 60 cents worth of sandpaper, a little bit of painter's tape, and a minute and a half of elbow grease will make those shiny bits infinitely better for your horse. So just because the maker made it really shiny does not mean it has to stay that way. So if you'll take the stainless steel bit and scuff it up, just the mouthpiece, not the cheeks, doesn't have to be anything that anybody will see, just the part that's going to be inside the horse's mouth. Give that thing a little texture, and you will see a difference in the way your horse rides with that bit. I promise. So even though the makers make them useless, we can make them a whole lot better, pretty simple. So a little bit of sandpaper, a little bit of time, a little bit of elbow grease, it'll make your bits a lot handier, I promise.
That's a good tip. Well, thank you for joining us. We were a little over an hour, but not too bad. I hope we didn't take too much of your time tonight. Thank you, everybody who's been watching. We're looking forward to meeting you in like 3 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Bring
I'll
some
make
warm
sure
weather.
I'll be happy to. It is quite warm here. We've been in the 80s and sweating through my shirt already. So I'll be happy to bring some of that up with me.
Well, if you've ever been to Horse Fair, you know that we can experience at least 3 seasons in 3 days here. So dress appropriately, right, Megan?
That's right. Get ready for anything.
Yep. Warm, cold, raining, snowing. You just don't know. So we will see you in 3 weeks. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Make sure y'all are subscribed. We're going to see you in 3 weeks. Daniel?
Yes, ma'am. Looking forward to it. Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with everyone, and I'm tickled. This will be my first time at Midwest Horse Fair, but I've been wanting to come up there for years, so I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yay.
Oh, it's going to be a ton of fun. We can't wait to meet you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
All
y'all.
right.
Thank y'all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.